in a world full of negative people. Hey man, I'm just trying to be a positive guy, a positive farmer, a positive outfitter. This is a SharkFarmer podcast with your host, Rob Sharkey. Whatever.
And welcome again to SharkFarmer Podcast. Hey, I'm your host, Rob Sharkey, and today I'm going to go in studio. We're going here to the great state of Illinois, the once great state, don't you think, Rock?
Used to be.
Used to be. When did it become not so great?
Oh, gosh, I better not go there.
Hey, we gave him Abraham Lincoln, right?
Correct.
And we gave him Ronald Reagan.
Yes.
And that's, we're just stop right there.
We're going to stop right there.
Today we're going to talk with Rock Katschnig. Now, Rock, where exactly are you from?
Northeastern Henry County,
Okay.
2.5 miles west of Hoople, Illinois.
Hoople, Illinois. All right. What is the mascot of Hoople?
Well, back when Hoople had a 4-H club, we were the Hoople Hotshots.
The Hoople Hotshots?
Yes.
So what does a hotshot look like?
Well, when I had cattle, I knew what a hotshot was. When I was a youngster in 4-H, I guess I'm not sure, but we were proud of our Hoople Hotshots. And gosh, as our rural communities have dwindled in numbers of young people, now the Hoople Hotshots are no longer, and they've joined with the Anawan All-Stars. 4-H, FFA is such an important thing for rural youth.
Yeah, exactly. Hotshots. We'll have to look up what that was. You don't see hotshots anymore. I guess that's taboo to use them with livestock.
That's right. To be politically correct in the livestock industry also.
I tell you, when I was raising hogs, though, if you use the hotshot right, it was probably the most humane way to do it.
Yes. When you're a livestock farmer, hogs, cattle, you invent new words.
See, yeah.
And sometimes they're not always friendly.
No. And generally, they only make sense to you.
That's right. That's right, yeah.
All right, Rock, I have to roll into my ad, okay?
Sure.
All right, you got to pay the bills. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
All right. Starting Wednesday, July 1st, SharkFarmer Radio will be direct with RFD Networks. We'll be part of the RFD team, won't we, Mrs. SharkFarmer?
Absolutely.
Yes, we're excited and nervous. No, we've had a great time with the Ag PhD. There is just it's almost a trading situation.
You've been traded like a baseball player.
Yeah, I don't know how to feel about that. I guess I feel good.
Absolutely.
We're just a good fit. This will allow us to branch off. We're going direct. If you're listening at home, you'll never know anything is different. But to us, it's a fairly big deal because now we're pumping directly into RFD. With doing the TV show with RFD and RFD owning the radio show, it really made perfect sense for everybody involved, including Brian and Darren Hefty, who we thank so much for giving us the original opportunity. So I think it's a win-win-win-win for everybody, I think. Yes, so July 1st on RFD channel 147. It's the same thing, right? It says, Rock, do you ever listen to the radio show?
Oh, yes. Listen to the radio show. RFD TV is my number one channel on our television.
Okay, so between you and my mom, we've got, our audience is growing. So, yes, you'll never know it at home, but yes, we're very proud to announce that we are going direct with RFD TV starting July 1st. We're dealing with a guy named Zach. Zach is our new overlord, Emily.
Zach is a new Alex.
Zach is a new Alex. I'm not sure who the new Janelle is. I don't know. We'll figure all this stuff out. But please tune in. Today, though, we're going to go back and talk with Rock Katschnig. Now, Rock, Hoople, Illinois, you are a farmer up there.
Yes, I've farmed I think this is my 44th crop. My original career path was going to lead into stock car racing. I had a love of stock car racing since I was in high school. And my older brother, who was 13 years older than me, was going to take over the family farm. My dad was going to retire at a younger age. Anyway, my brother was killed in a car accident 1 month to the day after he was married. And that threw everything back in my dad's lap. Dad was farming a lot of ground with 2 40-20s, 2 495A planters, 4 rows. 1256 was our big horse international back in those days. And the stress and the loss took its toll on Dad. Dad died of a heart attack January of 1973, a year and a half later.
Okay, whoa. Let's go back, because how old are you at this point?
I was 16 when my brother was killed in a car accident. I was 17 when Dad died.
All right, so 16 years old. Let's go back and talk about you were all into racing.
Yes.
That's what you wanted to do.
Yes. I wanted to drive a stock car, and my parents wouldn't let me. In fact, I was accepted at General Motors Institute in Flint, Michigan.
At 16?
Well, when I'm preparing my future, when I was a junior, we're sending our applications into colleges or whatever. So I was going to pursue something in the automotive industry so I could be connected to racing. A host of jobs out there connected to racing. So anyway, after the events that occurred, I guess I decided I was going to be a farmer and return back to the family farm.
So after your brother passed away and it went to your dad, did you know then you were going back?
Oh, gosh, the uncertainty at that point in time. Luckily, we had some relatives that helped my mother manage, and my brother-in-law stepped in and helped manage the farmland.
Mm-hmm.
We rented it out for a period of time, and then I decided I was going to pursue agriculture. So I went to Western Illinois University, joined Alpha Gamma Rho fraternity. That's the biggest thing that kept me there at school, is being in the fraternity house with 48 other brothers with agricultural backgrounds.
Just the brotherhood of it?
Yes, absolutely. There was 48 guys in the house that we all had the same love for agriculture, same background, and lifelong friends. We currently have 1,200 alums right now, so it's like having 1,200 brothers right now, once you're a member of a fraternity like that. So it was the biggest factor that kept me there. Graduated and came back to the farm in the spring of 1977 and put my first corn crop in.
77. When did your dad pass?
1973.
What did that farm do for 4 years?
Rented it out to a neighboring farmer and rented one of the other farms out to a relative.
There's people that are going to be listening to this and are going to be in the same situation, right? Because it sounds like your dream was to be on the racetrack.
Mm-hmm.
And now you have spent your entire career as a farmer because the family wanted you to come back. Any regrets with that?
No, not at all. My wife got a degree in home economics, and she was a teacher. She taught for 3 years before she put in for early retirement on me. I needed her on the farm, and our focus was raising a family. It's unfortunate in this day and age that both people in a marriage need to be employed.
Yeah.
Our focus was raising a family and being on the farm, so she helped me a lot. We have 4 daughters, and they've all been successful. We're very fortunate. We have 3 good son-in-laws, and one has joined us on the farm 6 years ago. So hopefully our farming operation, the K Ranch, can continue for a lot of years.
Mm-hmm. All right. So if you do have a person that comes up to you and wants to do whatever, right, when they're young, 16 through like 25, they want to do whatever. A lot of times there is pressure for, used to be the son, now a lot of pressure for the kid, whatever, the daughter or the son, to come back and take over the family farm because it's multi-generational and that, even if the kid has other dreams. We've seen that go bad. I mean, everybody in agriculture can point to that one situation where the kid didn't want to come back. He came back and didn't work just because there was no love in it. What advice would you give to someone who's trying to figure out that decision?
Well, number one, you have to have your heart 100% focused on the farm. And if you don't, it's not the end of the world. You have to be happy with what you're doing. You have to love what you're doing every day. And if you love what you're doing, it's not work.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have your heart in it. When that happens, you really don't pay attention to a clock. When there's work to be done, you do it. You don't pay attention what day of the week it is, you do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then your reward is the summer and the winter months when you have more time to spend with your family, travel, whatever. So it's kind of a seasonal thing, as we know in farming. But boy, especially when you have livestock, when there's work to be done, you got to do it.
When did you get rid of the livestock?
Sold a cow herd, had beef cows for 33 years.
Mm-hmm.
In February of 2008, my cows were getting old. I was getting old. My hired help was getting old. Our youngest daughter was off to college, and we were off to Florida for the winter.
Now, let's go back to this fraternity, right? Because I was never in one. I was dating Emily in college, so that was my main focus. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I know that.
You always hear about the brotherhood and that. So as you went in there with this love of racing, did those guys being all focused on agriculture, did that kind of stoke that fire?
Well, back in the 70s, there was a lot of people who didn't know what stock car racing was. It was just a localized thing. And there certainly wasn't any agricultural companies involved with stock car racing sponsorship like there is now.
Mm-hmm.
I've made some great friends in the racing industry now with sponsorships and teams and owners. And gosh, I've met a lot of fun people at racetracks.
Here's the thing about you. There's probably somebody listening in, I don't know, the Sahara Desert that goes, oh, that's Rock. I know Rock. Everybody knows you. How is that possible?
Well, I've had a lot of mentors. I've had a lot of mentors through my life. And you remember those people that have a knack for starting a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
You can never have too many friends. You run into people, and there's a lot of fun people out there, and your circle just gets bigger every day of your life.
That's a very interesting way you put it, a knack for starting a conversation, because I think that's exactly what you have. You have that ability not to just talk to somebody, but to connect with them. I've experienced it myself. I've seen you talk to other people. I know my son still talks about you and the day we spent up there at the races. So is that just natural?
Well, it's a two-way street. You know, when someone does a good favor for you, you certainly have to return the favor. And then that just makes that circle even bigger yet.
Mm-hmm.
As we had so much fun at the racetrack that day, guests of Brandt Racing and Justin
There you go.
Justin Allgaier.
Yeah.
Good driver. Really great driver.
Had a tough day that day.
It was really hot that day.
Yeah, that was very cool. You took our son and myself to the races, and then we went inside the inner track. I will not even pretend that I know much about racing. I was pretty obvious about that day. I just kept asking you probably the dumbest questions in the world, but that was fascinating to me. And then we got to go to where they're doing the pit stops, and we actually got to almost like sit over them and watch them do the pit stop. It's the coolest thing.
Sure.
Yeah, except that when William and I finally got a chance to go up there is when they broke down.
Yeah. Gosh, I forgot some trinkets from that day that you left there in the RV. I was going to bring those, but I forgot. But we'll get together again.
Exactly. Yeah, because who's the owner of the car?
Rick Brandt, Brandt Industries, Springfield, Illinois.
I was sitting right next to him, and they just announced that the car is done.
Yeah.
I look over to William. I said, don't say anything, because nobody up here is happy right now.
Yeah. That's racing.
Yeah. How did you get in? I know you've got a love for racing that, but you, inside that race world, everybody knew who you were.
Well, 1998, we always watched racing from the stands.
Mm-hmm.
And we said, gosh, you have to be so exciting to be down there on pit road in the garage area. Well, in 1998, we got an opportunity to hook up with a Busch team at that time. That was the sponsorship. It was owned by a farmer who had done very well from Carthage, Illinois. And a local sponsor, a trucking company, sponsored a 70 car. And they welcomed any volunteer help that they could get. So we said, yeah, sure, we'll help.
Mm-hmm.
And after a couple of years of that, we found out it's not so bad being up there in the stands after all.
Because of all the work.
Yes. Yes. And it's hot down there, and there's no goofing off. It's a job. You're there the minute the doors to the garage area open at 7 a.m., and it's a long day till 5 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
And now I certainly was not in a position where I did any mechanic work, but we shuttled tires and, we'd run errands and we'd go get this, go get that type of thing.
Grunt work.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You as a farmer, you're probably used to that.
And then something else, that racing speed gets in your blood,
Mm-hmm.
and it only takes a little bit more money to go a little faster.
It's story of everything, isn't it?
If you have a problem with having too much money and you don't know what to do with it, get involved with stock car racing.
There is an electricity that goes through you when you're down there and those cars roar past you. I mean, that's hard to explain to people.
I've taken so many people to the track for the first time, and when they come around there, that first lap full speed, the hair on your arm does funny things,
Exactly.
Yeah. Everyone's situation is the same.
Have you ever driven one?
I've done the driving experience.
Okay.
Last February, I jumped in a car with Justin Allgaier on the Richard Petty driving experience at Daytona, and we were up to 160 miles an hour, and he was driving. I was a passenger. Well, I take my phone, and I'm just going to get some video around here,
Yeah.
We do 3 laps, and I tape it. We go into turn 1 on the second lap, and we're up to speed, and I thought, gosh, we're awful close to that wall. And so we get done, and Justin looks at me, and he says, "What'd you think of that?" I said, "Well, we were a foot away from that wall." He says, "No, we were a lot closer than that."
Really? They're just that good, huh?
Yeah, they're that good. Well, he knows what he's doing. I'm not driving this car. He is. So it is a feeling you just cannot describe.
Yeah.
That type of speed. Now, we were only at 160. I can't imagine 200, 190, 200 when the car just kind of lifts up and moves around.
Oh, man. That would be fun to experience one time.
Yeah.
With the complete knowledge that you weren't going to die.
Yeah.
All right, let's go back to when you took over the farm. What do you walk into?
Well, let me say, we have a lot of marginal ground, a lot of sand, areas susceptible to standing water, drowned out crops. Boy, those first few years were tough. And then we got into those 19% interest days, 20% interest rate days when we had just put together a better line of farm machinery. John Deere 4440 was a big tractor back then.
Yeah. Coming up from a 4020, that's a huge jump.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
Okay, so you bought all this stuff, and then this was in the early 80s?
83, 84. If you had $100,000 in new farm machinery, it cost you $19,000 a year just to look at it. 19% interest. It was ugly. Then we unfortunately went through a bank failure in our little small community. And that was...
People don't know what that is.
Well, when those interest rates approach those high levels, things just didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't make their payments, and then the bank was consumed with more debt than assets. And the FDIC came in and took over the bank, locked it up.
It seems like such a foreign concept to, I would say, a lot of people listening that have been farming, I don't know, from the 90s on.
Well, it was a very learning experience, not only as a farmer, but as lenders. They're much more cautious today and not getting on the downside of the assets. So anyway, we certainly learned. We learned about locking in interest rates, that variable rate. Well, it maybe can go down, but it can also go up. And, oh gosh, the operations, the farmland was lost because, you take a long-term land loan. And when it reached those higher rates, it just didn't work. It was a foreclosure. It was a very, very, very tough time in farming.
We look at our interest cost of what we pay every year, and it's annoying and that. But, this is at, 6%? I couldn't imagine it at 19%. It goes from being, one of your fixed costs that you're like, okay, yeah, we got to pay that every year, to probably one of your biggest payments every year is just borrowing the money to continue to farm.
Right. And, we were looking at corn back in those days, loan rate corn, $1.90, $2.20. And if it moved a dime in a long period of time, that was a big move.
Yeah.
We sold so much corn for $2.25 a bushel. We didn't have the markets. It was way before ethanol. We didn't have the market moves. We really struggled. But after the interest rates and, the tough times we went through, we got the opportunity to store grain in the 3-year grain reserve. And they would pay us 26.5 cents to store grain for the government for a year's time. We can move that grain the 1st of September, replace it with new grain in the field. That was the only opportunity to make money we had. People stored grain in barns, ear corn cribs. Anything that would hold grain was filled full of corn to try to make some money.
The machine shed up at my parents' house, that's what that was built for. Yeah. And I think that's probably the only time grain was ever put in it, but it paid for the shed.
That's right.
Plus they were making money on top of that. It's a hard concept for the younger generation that's farming today to grasp how bad it was in the early 80s. How close did you guys come to not making it?
Oh, gosh. I'll never forget the day I walked into the new bank, and the FDIC reps were there, and they told me what I owed. And anyway, it was a very tall number, so we structured it over a 10-year period to pay it back. And we dug our way out of that with a Vermeer round baler and storing grain and 3-year reserve, as I'd mentioned, and we got dug out of that. And then we got the opportunity to rent some better farmland. Actually had good yields, got some better prices, expanded, got some better farm machinery, and grew the operation. It was a whole different world when you start making money. And at the end of the year, you don't owe more money at the end of the year than you did at the beginning of the year.
What, that's supposed to happen?
Yeah.
Explain the baler. What do you mean that helped you?
Well, back in the 80s, round bales was a pretty new concept. Before that, it was all square bales. So
Really?
Oh, yeah. Not many people owned a round baler.
Boy, I thought it would have been further back than that. I guess it's aging me.
Possibly, but I hired a neighbor who had a round baler, and he come and baled for me because you have cows, you need a lot of roughage, hay, straw, whatever. So then I bought a baler, and he said, I'm tired of doing this custom baling. You bale for this guy, bale for that guy. So, oh my gosh, I ran all over northern Henry County and even got almost to Kewanee baling in the hills. It was a good moneymaker, but usually 3 crops. You have to take with the good with the bad. A lot of times first cutting really makes some good money. A lot of bales in a day, but third cutting, you might bounce all afternoon for 10 bales.
Yeah.
In this day and age, they charge trip charge and all this. Well, we didn't get away with that back in the 80s.
It does sound like hard work, among some other things, is what got you through.
What got me through? Family. Coming home to the little kids every night, and enjoying the family farm and good weather. And I guess that'd be the nicest thing about being retired from farming is not having to worry about the weather.
I know. You tell yourself, like even this year, we're missing rains here. I'm a lot better than I used to be, but still, I mean, every time that front comes along and it splits you, it's a little shot in the heart.
Been there. We've been fortunate up there where we were. We got a 1/2 inch Friday night. I've never seen in my life all this corn so dark green and so uniform.
Yeah, it looks great, doesn't it?
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, but don't say that because then the market's going to go down.
Yeah, I think it's too late.
Yes, it's not pictures of corn that's going to drive the market down.
But, I think we're going to be okay. 350, 375, selling it at loan rate. If we can get 375 bushel the acre and sell it at loan rate, we should be okay.
Well, you must not have a very good crop, huh?
We have to be optimistic in this game.
Okay. Well, I've been on the verge of bankruptcy back with the hog crash in 98. It's all consuming. When you wake up in the morning to when you can't sleep at night, that's all you're thinking about is I'm going to go broke. I'm about to lose this farm. You talked about coming home to the girls. What else helps? Because, I feel like we're going to go into a bad period here. And there's going to be young guys listening, and I would love for them to impart some knowledge from you that's been through this whole thing and come out the other end.
Well, I sure know what you mean there about bankruptcy. We were very close there also. But what saved me going through the stress of losing so many family members was my timber. I was blessed with Dad bought a bunch of ground that had a bunch of timber on it, and he always ran cattle in it. But I would go to the timber with my old squirrel rifle for peace in the fall, and still do today for turkey and deer, and it's just peace and solitude, and that helped a lot. But as, the stress of weather, farming, livestock prices, whatever, you have to learn how to eliminate stress out of your life and not worry about things you don't have any control over. It will consume you.
Mm-hmm.
You focus on matters that you can control. So once you learn how to do that, that will help terrifically in your life.
It's probably pretty stressful for the squirrels, though.
It was back then.
My getaway used to be deer hunting.
Yes.
And then it seemed like I would go out in the stand and I just sat there and I thought, in 5 minutes I could be home and I could be doing this. I could be doing that. I could deal with this. I don't know why that changed from one thing to the other. I just found something else. We got the motorcycle. Never driven a motorcycle in my life, but then we got that and I could get on that thing and now I can have that experience I used to have when I hunted where I can just kind of veg out. To me, it's a game changer. To me, it's almost like corn needing to respirate at night. It needs that time where it can it's flexing, it's growing, it's flexing, and then it just needs that little bit of time where it can just relax. And then it's ready to go the next day. That's what I needed anyway.
Mm-hmm. The great thing about the timber is not always just pulling the trigger. It's the beautiful things you see.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing greater than being in the timber at first light. The animals, you name it, what's ever out there, and they come out and the sun coming up, and that's the greatest part.
Yeah. Let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about 4-H and FFA Well, I'll just ask you, are they still important?
Well, my FFA teacher, my ag teacher in high school, kind of took over as my father figure.
Mm-hmm.
And he was probably the biggest inspiration in my life to continue on the family farm also. Ralph Moons from Atkinson, Illinois, he's left us, but he was a very great man. And the ag teacher, the FFA teacher, shapes so many young futures, whether it's a young man or young lady, whatever. They'll help find that niche that they enjoy and help pursue and guide them, and then help them with their leadership skills. It's one of the greatest, most important things that these kids can get involved with in school, and it's so important that we continue to support that.
I can't tell you how many people we've interviewed, and Emily's really good about getting first-generation farmers because, contrary to popular belief, there's a lot of them out there. They might not be farmers that look like you and me, but they are getting involved in agriculture, and the majority of them say that they found their love for agriculture and farming in FFA or 4-H. That's how they got started. And then they loved it so much they went out, got a goat herd or whatever. Again, we're going to look at it as non-traditional, but I mean, how did our ancestors start?
Well, one of the greatest things that's helping these young people choose a career path are the television shows we have on TV today.
Like what?
Oh my gosh, RFD TV is so great.
Oh, this guy's awesome.
It is. It's my number one favorite channel. It is so interesting watching agriculture in different parts of the country.
Mm-hmm.
Georgia Farm Monitor, California Bountiful, Texas Country Reporter, and then all the ag programs we have. It keeps you so up to date with current legislation, things that are going on, rules, regulations you have to be aware of. But the niche farming, your vegetables, your organics, FarmHer's a great program, whether it be the East Coast, harvesting oysters, shrimp, Louisiana. And these young kids take a look at that and they say, that'd really be a lot of fun. I like that.
You mentioned FarmHer, Margie. That's a good example of someone that has maybe taken the thought that girls shouldn't come back to the farm and done away with that. She's changed a lot of opinions on women coming back to agriculture. It's interesting you brought that up because I don't know. I guess I haven't even looked at it that way.
Well, it's so interesting that people tell their story and how they've struggled to succeed. Mm-hmm. And if you have the determination, it's there. And you see people that have done it, that certainly helps. There's so many different opportunities out there. Mm-hmm. And another thing, as people age, these older people are looking for that right person to fill their shoes and continue their dream the way they want it to take over, continue, so there's a lot of opportunity there for those young people if they're honest, hardworking, sincere. Those are three main factors that an older person, there's a lot of older farmers that took me under their wing. I got the opportunity to custom farm for, and that opened a lot of doors when we were doing a lot of custom farming, trying to spread our machinery over more land to help pay for it. That opens a lot of doors.
There's a lot of people that think the key to, getting more ground is getting that initial foot on the property. Have you found that?
Certainly. And you're only as good as your word. So that's a big door opener when you work with a landowner or someone you're doing custom work for. If they know they can trust you, they'll feel comfortable renting you their land.
What does your farm look like now?
Well, our farm, my grandfather bought in 1940. It was originally a livestock farm where they raised draft horses because there was so much sand there. And there's some very old, antiquated buildings that need to see our excavator, and we've been going to do that for several years now. Gosh, it doesn't seem to be enough hours in a day. But there's a lot of summer projects. But when it's August and it's 95 degrees, it's just not that much fun.
You're seasoned. I mean, you've earned it. You started talking about working with the 40/20s and the 4-row planters, and you had the cattle. I mean, you've worked your entire life. I guess to a lot of us that are just hammering every day, there's a hope that maybe you can, maybe put it in crews later in your career.
Well, you can do that depending on the season. You can't do that planting season, harvest season, Really hate to work on Sunday, But when beans are ready and there's a storm coming, you don't have that option.
Yeah.
Or if you're spraying and you have a storm coming.
The first year I farmed, I bought out Dad's stuff. We had an 8-row John Deere planter. And I was planting beans, and I got rained out. And I got rained out for like 6 weeks. I mean, it would not stop raining. So we finished the rest of the field. It's a 300-acre field, and we did half of it the first time and half of it the second. I figured out that the difference in yield, I could have paid for a brand new planter in the difference of yield. So that's a lesson I learned right off the bat. It's just how you have to be on it. A lot of people give farmers a lot of crap because, during planting and harvest, you're nuts, you're crazy. Well, it's a learned behavior.
It certainly is. Exactly what you mentioned. There's situations where you don't want to go in there and plant that field because every single acre just isn't exactly perfect and you want it uniform.
Yeah.
Well, 95, 96 was a very wet time, and we went in and planted field like a patchwork quilt, and we finished end of June. And as you just mentioned, there was not uncommon to be 15, 20 bushel per acre difference between the early planted beans and late planted beans.
Yeah. That's a lot of money.
It is.
Yeah. I've done it the other way, though. I went in there. It didn't work. But, you go in there and replant, and it is what it is.
Yeah. You have to make the best decision at the time, not look back. Don't beat yourself up. I should have done this. I should have done that. You can't do that. You make
That's
the best
so hard.
decision at the time.
It's so damn hard to do, though.
Oh, yeah.
Because, if it doesn't rain, I can deal with that. If I planted on the wrong day, I can let that beat me up for 2 years. What's the key to not doing that?
Beer.
Good. I'm doing something right. As you look back, right? How many years you been farming? Did you say it was 44 crops?
I think this is 44.
What do you think the biggest lesson you ever learned?
Oh, my goodness. There
Yeah.
are so many.
Yeah, I'm a professional interviewer.
I think I could write a book. But anyway, never trust an electric fence.
And never piss on it either. Right?
That's right. Oh, yeah, they got me. They got me with an old pitchfork one time when I was little. Yeah.
I don't even want you to explain that statement.
Well, they had a pitchfork and they put it down there by that fence and let it arc,
Yeah.
But they were holding onto the wood handle.
Uh-huh.
When they told me to try it, they said, now grip it down here on this metal part here so you can get a hold of it better. Yeah, I sure did.
You learned.
That's right. But it's not as bad as what my older brother did to my brother-in-law. My brother-in-law, he wanted to hunt squirrels, so they walked him down into the timber. And back in those days, we had some sows down there feeding them ear corn,
Mm-hmm.
Well, they had an electric fence about a foot off the ground to keep the sows in. Well, my brother and our hard man at that time walked my brother-in-law down there. He had him staring up in the trees, and they walked him right into that electric fence. Got him in his shins, and he was dancing in the electric fence, and it was getting him every jolt.
You hoople boys are mean.
Oh, yeah.
We all know farming, right? There's got to be some young guys in your neighborhood that are feeling you out. What do you look for?
Well, you have to be honest, and your word has to be good. If you say you're going to do something, you got to do it.
Yeah.
But our son-in-law, daughter number 3, they've joined our operation, and we're trying to slow down. But farming is like being in the mafia. Once you're in, you can't get out.
There's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah. You might be able to slow down a little bit, but as you get older, you pick your jobs.
Mm-hmm.
I pick more of the air-conditioned, air-ride seat jobs.
Well, isn't that your right at this point? God, I hope you say yes.
I think so.
All right. So did you ever diversify?
Well, cow herd. We kept the calves, took calves to slaughter weight because we were only 17 miles away from the slaughterhouse of Jocelyn.
Mm-hmm.
And that old cow herd made a lot of farm payments.
Yeah.
Paid a lot of bills.
I mean, what's your thoughts of this generation coming up and the guy's got a full-time job, a 40-hour full-time job, but still wants to farm?
It can be done. There's a lot of people out there doing it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have some support from either a farmer that believes in you or a relative. As a landowner, you're going to have to compromise, and you're not going to get top dollar like you could. But if you want to see your operation continue, you're going to have to compromise and work with a new person coming in. I thought back, there's a lot of years you don't farm for the money. You farm because you like what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Especially back there in the 80s. There were so many years that we owed more money at the end of the year than we did at the beginning. But then that year will come along when you'll have a rally and you'll say, oh my gosh, isn't this fun?
Yeah, I remember that once. 2012, we made a lot of money. I think we're about out of it now.
Yeah. Oh gosh, the importance of ethanol, how it changed our world. We're so fortunate to have the ethanol plant there at Anawan CHS now.
Mm-hmm.
All my corn, every kernel of my corn, 10 miles away from my bin site.
Yeah, it's all of our corn goes to ethanol plants. You know, when they were talking, it wasn't even a COVID, it was oil prices and shutting down the ethanol plants. Boy, there was a lot of people, myself included, that just didn't know where this was going to end.
Right. When Anawan was Patriot Renewable Fuels, we had such a great board of directors, and we no more and got up and running, and we got hit with $7.50 corn,
Mm-hmm.
and that board pulled us through it. They turned that into a very, very profitable plant and then sold to CHS. We were very, very fortunate. They had such an efficient plant, good location, thanks to our developers, the people that built the plant. I believe they only went to 50% grind. They did not close during the tough time here.
Yeah.
Right now they're back up to 100% grind.
That's great. Thank you.
Heard this morning that there's still 40 plants that have not reopened.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be looking what to do because things could get very ugly. Things could get more ugly than we've seen since the 80s. Who knows?
Well, it's so much fun meeting people in the ag industry. For our farm broadcasters, they help us tell our story. And when you're young and you have livestock, there's a lot of things you'd like to do, but you can't. Because if you're not there to do the work, it's not going to get done. But as you get older, you find you have time to go to meetings and be active. You'll find it's so much more fun talking about farming than doing the farming.
There's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah, I got involved with Henry County Farm Bureau, learned so much. Got involved with their A-Lot program, a different leadership, build your leadership skills.
Yeah, I went through that.
Yeah. And, as I've said many times, in the old days, we had to keep our fields weed-free and our livestock healthy. And it's unfortunate now that a big part of our daily job is defending, representing our industry and telling our story in a accurate, clear manner that we're doing everything right and keeping our water clean and not polluting. And that's a big part of our job every day today.
You still involved in the Farm Bureau?
My term was up. My son-in-law took over as a director for our township, but I really miss the involvement. I met so many wonderful people. I think that could possibly have been where you and I first crossed paths.
I think so. It seems like Chicago.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I interviewed the AFB president, so I guess Farm Bureau and I are friends again.
Yeah. Gosh, we have some good people representing us there.
Yeah, definitely.
One thing that was very rewarding was the Farm Bureau infrastructure tour. In 2014, we went to our shipping ports, and it was to do with the importance of navigation and improvements to our waterways and our locks and dam systems. We went to Galveston, Texas, New Orleans, Savannah, Georgia, Richmond, Virginia. It was such an eye-opening experience how this world revolves around shipping, import, exports. In the container world, I never dreamt how much of our life depends on containers. And case in point there is, so many containers used to go back to China empty. Now they go back filled with DDGs, the byproduct from ethanol. So that's a huge part of our grain exports also, is the DDG market.
I don't think people understand the size of those ships. I think you have to see one to actually understand how big these Panamax ships are.
I recall a number from that trip. On the big ships, a 20-foot container counts as 1 unit. If it's a 40-foot container, it counts as 2 units. But those Panamax vessels will hold 22,000 container units. And it's just mind-boggling how much product goes back and forth in those. And also our ports, Atlanta, Georgia, how much goes through Atlanta, whether it be the airport or whatever. They said when you die, depending on where you go, you will have a connecting flight through Atlanta.
Yeah. We've had several. I had a chance to go down to Panama. They've expanded that now. The Panamax are now the small ones. They're like a floating city. It's amazing how big they are. We even went to a port because it was still being built, the canal was. And we went to a port, they call them the Super Panamax or whatever they are. The biggest of the bigs were coming in. And this was down in Panama. I don't even know what language they were speaking. They speak like, 3-4 languages. But they go to this control room, and this thing is as high-tech as you're going to get. And these glass walls there, and there is a gal sitting in like a control chair. It looks like a Dr. Evil type of thing. And she is controlling how all these containers are getting dropped off. The truck pulls up, and they put it down, they lock it down, and they want that thing out in like 13 seconds. I mean, boom, 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 boom. She started yelling. This one guy pulled up. He brought the wrong trailer. It was harder to put on. It took longer, 13 seconds anyway. She starts screaming or whatever. You can see the people on the monitors going nuts. And the guy turns around and he's like, that guy will never be allowed in here again. I said, just like that, right? If you take longer than that, you screw up one time. They're that efficient. It's that much of a well-oiled machine. It's crazy. So I think if anybody gets a chance to look at what you did, these shipping centers, these ports, it's definitely worth it.
Yeah. We went to warehouses that would be 15 acres refrigerated under roof and all this refrigerated frozen product coming in and coming out. It's just mind-boggling what we saw.
I can't even keep my damn fridge in the shop cold half the time.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Rock. Are you on the social media much?
Yeah. We're on Facebook. Have a lot of friends and yep. Wake up middle of the night, that's something else. When you get old, you're up from 2 o'clock till 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock till 4 o'clock. Thank the world for the internet.
Well, usually this is a part of the interview where, I say, well, where can people find you on social media? And they go, well, my Twitter handle, my Instagram handle, my Facebook or whatever. So your Facebook.
Facebook, yeah.
Okay. Spell your last name for people.
German, Katschnig, Katzschnig.
Okay. And it's Rock.
Correct.
Right? Yeah.
That's my real name, too. I was named after Rocky Marciano.
Really?
Yep.
I wouldn't have guessed that.
Not a nickname.
Okay.
My dad named me, yeah.
Very cool. As we're ending here, is there anybody, as you look back on this whole thing that you've done, this whole career, your whole life, who are the people that you want to thank?
Well, certainly, as I mentioned, my old ag teacher.
Mm-hmm.
He was there for me. He was the guiding light. He just inspired me so much that the future of agriculture is wide open.
Mm-hmm.
He was a great driving force. It's just endless, all the people that have supported me in my life. A lot of friends helped take over as a father figure and, tighten me up now and then. Hey, you're going down a bad road. You better straighten up and you better quit doing that. You better go this route. And I have a lot of people.
Very good. Rock Katschnig from Hoople. The Hoople, what were they?
Hoople Hotshots.
Hoople Hotshots. Thank you for coming down. I really appreciate it.
Always fun.
Yeah.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Rob, for the invitation down.
You betcha. Rock, thank you very much. And everybody else. We hope you catch us next week.
And thank you for listening to the SharkFarmer podcast. I am your host, Rob Sharkey. Please visit us at www.sharkyfarms.com. And just search for SharkFarmer to follow me on Twitter. Later.